Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Short, the Personalized Learning Professor, and this episode is a little different. This episode is a remix of a presentation I gave at the Research and Theory Division's Theory Spotlight competition at the 2021 AECT International Conference. This theoretical framework competed in a head-to-head competition against other theories for instructional design. So lace up your boots and tape your gloves because this bout is about to begin. This is a presentation of the Personalized Learning Design Framework, a framework for defining, designing, and evaluating personalized learning. This presentation is part of the RTD Theory Spotlight competition. I'm Dr. Cecil Short, the Personalized Learning Professor and Assistant Professor of Practice in Blended and Personalized Learning at Texas Tech University. To get started, we have to answer the question, what is personalized learning? And that is easier said than done. According to a 2020 literature review by Shimshek and Spector, despite the sharp increase in personalized learning research over the past 2 decades, personalized learning for everyone still looks different according to the needs and goals of the individual. They weren't able to really nail down a unified definition of personalized learning. They suggested that we need more research to be done about personalized learning. We also need the involvement of experts in the field, educators, pedagogues, researchers, software engineers, and programmers to create teams to work on the same goal to produce stable, unified personal learning systems and models. The idea that personalized learning as a system and model still just has too many variables. They said a unified agreement on the components needed to be included in personalized learning models is still needed. I think the disparity that exists between different definitions of personalized learning really comes down to the parable of the blind men and the elephant. 6 blind men approach an elephant. One reaches out and touches the trunk and believes he's touching a snake. Another one feels the ear and thinks it's a fan. Another wanders into the legs and thinks he's wandered into some trees. Another feels the side and believes he's come up against a wall. Another the tail and feels a brush. And the last one the tusk and feels like it's a spear. Each one tries to identify the elephant based on the component that they are familiar with or interested in, the component they're touching. They aren't able to see the full elephant. And to define personalized learning, we really have to be able to define it by the full elephant. We really shouldn't be surprised this kind of disparity exists when defining an instructional strategy. In his book, An Architectural Approach to Instructional Design, Andy Gibbons said this about instructional strategies. Theorists who have strategy concepts to promote often use the term opportunistically to refer to their particular interests without cross-referencing their ideas with those of others. That is, they tend to define it by the tail, the tusk, or the trunk without consulting people who are defining it by the side, the ear, and the legs. He goes on to explain that instructional strategies are one layer in an instructional system, and that even within that one layer, strategies are made up of several sublayers. This idea was later simplified by Graham Henry and Gibbons, who boiled those 7 layers down to just 2, the physical and the pedagogical layer. They moved away from the language of sublayers to the idea of core attributes, and suggested that it was the core attributes of the pedagogical layer of the instructional strategy that would create the learning outcomes we aim for in using that strategy. To return to the idea of defining personalized learning, I feel like the definition really must have 2 parts, and that is the definition that the Personalized Learning Design Framework, the PLDF, provides. That 2-part definition looks like this. Part 1, personalized learning is an instructional strategy that adapts learning to each learner's individual abilities, interests, or needs. I think when we look at all of the different definitions of personalization, all of them kind of get at this idea. Where they start to disagree is what this looks like, and that's part 2 of the PLDF definition. Part 2 suggests that as an instructional strategy, personalized learning consists of several core attributes related to what part of the instruction is adapted, how it is adapted, why it is adapted, that is, what data the adaptation is based on, and who or what adapts it. Going back to that idea from Graham Henry and Gibbons, basically these core attributes of personalized learning are what create the learning outcomes that we shoot for when we begin to personalize our instruction. But the PLDF doesn't stop there. It actually goes into detail about, well, what do these core attributes actually look like and how do they function? The first core attribute of the PLDF is what element of instruction is being adapted based on students' abilities, interests, or needs. Are we adapting the learning objectives, the assessments, or the learning activities? Through my work with K-12 teachers, I've discovered that all three of these can be adapted based on students' differences. The second core attribute of the PLDF is how is instruction being adapted? Is the instruction being adapted based on students' goals, when and where students are learning, how quickly students are progressing, or the activities, resources, or assessments they are using to progress through their learning? Again, through working with K-12 teachers, we've been able to see that all 5 of these dimensions can be personalized based on students' differences. The third core attribute of the PLDF is what is the adaptation based on? What data are we using? For this, I like to refer to the PAL data framework, which stands for Performance, Activity, or Learner Profile Data. Are we adapting instruction based on students' performance, that is their mastery data or their level of understanding measured by some assessment? On their activity data, how much time they're spending working on something, how much time they're on task, or even maybe something like their absences, or their learner profile data, their personal goals, their interests, their hobbies, or their emotional state, how much sleep they got last night, or how long it's been since they had their last meal. Each of these types of data can be a valid reason for adapting instruction. The fourth core attribute of the PLDF is who is responsible for the adaptations to the instruction. Is the adaptation being driven by the instructor? Is it being driven by some kind of adaptive technology or software? Or is it being adapted by the learner? Another way that we can approach this is by looking at the taxonomy of learner agency. Have we started to adapt the instruction at level 2, where things are now individualized based on learners' needs or interests? Or are we allowing students to have more ownership over their learning by moving into levels 3 and 4, providing them with limited choice, maybe between goals or assessments or activity types? Or are we moving up to level 4 and really allowing students to have free choice over the way that they are going to show understanding or the learning that they are pursuing? The core attributes of the personalized learning design framework combine to create a shared understanding of what personalized learning is and how it works. Instead of just saying, I personalize learning for my students, we can now say, I personalize assessments based on path by providing my students a choice over different assessment types based on their strengths or interests. Such descriptions of personalized learning can guide the design of personalized learning by clarifying at least some of the core attributes of personalized learning. There may be more core attributes, but I think these attributes definitely get at the bulk of what personalized learning is and how it works. Finally, the PLDF can also be used to evaluate personalized learning by providing a framework for focusing on what is being personalized, how, why, or by whom, and to what purpose. So how can the PLDF be applied to research design and evaluation? Well, first, there is a host of research that could be done around what core attributes of personalized learning provide the greatest impact on various outcomes, such as increasing learners' academic performance, engagement, or agency and ownership, and how do these core attributes differ based on context. As far as design is concerned, the PLDF can be used to lead the design of personalized learning environments and instruction in P12, higher education, and corporate settings. I've mostly talked about its use in P12, but it can also be used to guide personalized instruction for students in higher education, maybe allowing them to personalize coursework based on their own interest or career goals, or in corporate settings, allowing employees to maybe personalize their training based on prior experience and what their goals are within the corporate setting. Lastly, the PLDF can be used to create evaluation matrices for personalized learning environments and contexts. It can be used to create measurements of how well personalized learning environments are producing the outcomes that they want to produce based on the different core attributes of the design. What is the relevance of the PLDF to AECT? Well, it provides a framework for scholarship and best practices related to the creation, use, and management of technologies used to facilitate effective learning and teaching that addresses learners' diversities. This language is taken directly from AECT's mission statement. Additionally, it aligns with AECT's values by creating opportunities for new leaders, new collaboration, and new scholarly communities to emerge that can create sustainable and financially stable uses of technology for learning that, again, address learners' diversities across educational contexts. Lastly, I believe the PLDF provides research, design, and evaluation opportunities that transcend AECT divisions. It allows us to bridge the gaps between various divisions, goals, and values by focusing on the ways in which maybe personalized learning ties together different strategies, theories, or focuses of AECT's divisions. I thank you for your time and for considering the impact that the personalized learning design framework can have in our field. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode about the personalized learning design framework. If you found this episode enlightening, as always, please help me with the algorithms by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to the Personalized Learning Professor YouTube channel. As always, I'm Dr. Short, the Personalized Learning Professor, asking you to look for positive possibilities.